Hey man, welcome to another exciting episode of Technology Tuesday. I'm your host, Greg Russell, and I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Jerry Franklin Poe, and we got an exciting show lined up for you guys. Can't wait to dive into some of the strategies, tips that we're going to share. You're going to love it. So do us a favor. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Hashtag live if you are watching us on the live show and the city you are tuning in from, and hashtag replay if you are watching the replay. Want to thank you in advance for your support and for letting everyone know about Technology Tuesday. With that, we're about to dive in and share what we have in store for you guys today. Here we go.
All right. It's time. Technology Tuesday. We're here every week, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you that practical knowledge, practical applications, so you can have practical solutions for your business. And Greg, it's been a hot summer over here in Pennsylvania. We are in our second heat wave. I'm not sure what's happened over there in Texas,
It's always
but
hot. Our summers are
yeah, well,
blazing.
yeah, it's like, you just walk outside and you just start sweating type weather right now. It's a little crazy.
Yes, man, and we got the humidity as well. So it's a double whammy for us, but we're blessed to, have another summer, man. Appreciate, the summertime and being able to be out there. Well, not out there, but I appreciate the warm weather and appreciate it not getting as cold here as it does there where you are. So that's that's one of the benefits.
Yeah. I mean, I would take the in between, like that 75, 80 would be cool. But we somehow we skipped past that. We went from chilly to on fire. And it's like there
I
was like
love it.
no from whether it was an icy hot, like a Shack commercial. We went from it's like icy hot. It was no in between. It was
Go in
no like,
between.
hey, gradual. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, let's dive into what we have in for today. I'm gonna let you start it off, and then I'll jump in. I got a page full of notes, and I'm ready to share some resource, not well, some thoughts about what's going on in the marketplace. But go ahead, man. Set it off for us.
Yeah, well, a few weeks ago we had Rochelle Shaw on the show, and it was a great interview, and she was sharing so many wonderful insights. And by the time, I mean that we were like 50 minutes in. So by the time we got to, the end, there was no space for us to recap or like to break down all of these nuggets, these insights. The thing that and she was sharing her story, she was sharing her experience. And I don't know how you are, but I seem to glean knowledge, uh, insight, information. Like even when I'm watching a movie and it's about somebody, I'm like, oh, I pick up a lesson. So there was lessons inside of the story that she was sharing about how she went from having this business where she was working to buying the business, after reading Reginald Lewis's book and getting inspiration from that. And then a tragedy hits the country, and no one could there's certain things that sometimes happen you cannot foresee, you cannot predict. You cannot predict the pandemic, right? That happened 6 years ago. Like, there are so many things that you don't see coming. Some things in business you can anticipate, and others you cannot. And how that shook her world, and then the health challenges and all those types of things that go along with it. One of the major takeaways I got from her story is that problems lead to profit. And I think sometimes people miss that problems lead to profit, because if you focus primarily on the problem, it can somewhat be overwhelming. But problems are given for a reason. And usually the problem is given to you because you probably have the solution inside you, and you just have to discover it. So one of her issues was, she got her services, her utilities disconnected, which led her to figuring out, well, if this happened to me, it happens to a lot of people. Just yesterday, I had an interview, and I know you were being interviewed too by someone for a new book that we have coming out in a couple months or so. And one of the things I talked about is that when people have a business and they get stuck on thinking about the thing that's the obstacle, the thing that's the block, and they don't always connect that what they're experiencing, other people are probably experiencing the same thing. So if I solve this problem, I can offer that solution to other people, and people are willing to pay to have their problems disappear, which is why we have products and services. Products or services are solutions to problems. Well, it's like, my clothes are dirty. I need a laundry service. My clothes are dirty. I need a washing machine. My clothes are dirty. I have to go buy some detergent, right? Ring around the collar was a problem. So, first of all, ring around the collar was a problem that Whisk made up because they gave it a name. They named the problem. And we don't have enough time today to go into that whole
That's a
arc,
that's
the
that's a
arc of
lesson in a
change.
lesson. You went back, ring around the collar, a catchphrase from the '80s, bro.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's an awareness issue, right? In order for you to have change, in order for you to have transformation, they first have to become aware of the problem. And if you are the product creator, the service creator, it's imperative for you to create awareness for the thing that you are offering. So they created awareness of a problem that people didn't really even understand that they had because they didn't have a name for it. Once you label something, once you give a name for something, now people start to look for it. Like, oh, I got ring around the collar too. I need to
It's
probably go
crazy,
out
but
there and get that
there's
whisk.
such a lesson there. Like, listen, whatever challenges that you're having, if you can solve them, other people would need to solve them too. And on the real simple, easy, simplistic level, like, if you have a challenge and you find a service that solves that challenge and they have an affiliate program, then you can recommend that product to those who have that problem. Real simple. So I love it. And a lot of entrepreneurs, that I hear in the business world, they talk about, you are a problem solver, and the bigger the problem, the more you charge. So go try to find a big problem to solve. But I like it. I like, it's like if you have a problem, but then on the flip side, and this is kind of outside of where we were going, but I'm going to go there anyways. Like, what if you not only recognize the problem, but then you give it a name, like a unique name, like, do you suffer from XYZ too, right? Do you have this too? I like it. And I like it because I think I'm going to look for ways, because now you have AI. You can be like, hey, if this is a problem, what could be some cool names to, and you can come up with a whole lot of stuff that way. But that's a writer downer. I think I'm going to do that for myself. To name, create a name for the problem, so that, like you said, it's like once people hear what the problem is and they associate that name to it, then now it's like they're aware, right? And then the whole thing about marketing is helping people become aware of you, but the problem that they have is even more aware because they're having the problem.
Yeah, well, it's how the brain works.
Yeah.
We need to put stuff in files, boxes, right? We gotta the more we like to label things, and when somebody gives us a label, it makes it easier for us to categorize it. We don't like to just have stuff just floating around with no place to put it. We need to like associate it with something. So when you create a name for the problem, it makes it easier for you to understand and associate what you're experiencing with the solution. And it's quite fascinating that that's a marketing strategy that sometimes people overlook. Is that some people, some products, some services actually created the problem. Like, I mean, they named, like when I say created it, they gave it a name. Like they didn't. This was there, but it didn't have a name before. Now it does have a name, and because it does have a name, people start using that name to describe what it is they're experiencing. So then they're looking for something to solve that actual. Now you're going to go Google, how do I solve this? How do I fix this? And all that points back to you, right? And the other side to it, and this is where Reginald Lewis comes into play. if you can identify a problem and someone else already has the solution, as you said, you could be an affiliate or you can even buy their business. And
Because that's
there are some people who are getting older and they're ready to step to the side, like they want to go play golf and they want to go on the beach. So they're looking for somebody, because a lot of families, if you think about generationally, some families they don't want to take over their family business. They want to do something else, and the person doesn't know where to actually go with it. John Hope Bryant talks a lot about this in his books and on his podcast about there are so many baby boomers that are stepping away or looking to step away from their business, and there's no one to take it over. So if you can identify a problem that you're having and someone else already has a solution, you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. You can buy someone else's business to solve that problem as well.
yeah, and that's exactly, the story that Rochelle talked about the gentleman who was ready to step away, and she was like, why don't I buy the business? And to tap into exactly what we're talking about, that had its own set of problems and challenges, because in the terms of trying to get financing to be able to do that. And one of the things that stuck out to me was how she, like, it wasn't a big part of what she said, but it was something I picked up on. And it was, so she had this challenge of getting the finances to buy the business, and she said she had to find lots of creative ways to do that, and she had to buy she couldn't just get the loan directly, so she had to find other ways. And I think for a lot of us, when we come to challenges, when there's things that aren't just working out the way, not the easy way, but the way you thought or the way other people said, and you're hitting that brick wall, you're hitting that resistance. Sometimes you have to determine and find other ways to get around that. And a lot of times, sometimes we let that stop us. But in her particular case, she said she had creative ways and had to buy certain assets to be able to eventually get ownership. She had to go a non-traditional route. And there were several times in my personal life and business where I had to do that as well. So sometimes, just because you are faced with a challenge or an obstacle and the obvious answer doesn't work, doesn't mean there's other alternatives. So I think it's just something important to be mindful of that. You may not be aware of the alternative ways to solve that problem when you're faced with the problem, when the traditional way may not work. But I tell you, in many cases, when I was able to just find ways to do things because the regular way just wasn't going to work for whatever reason, a lot of times I would discover things for searching for answers. There's a lot of times there's so many different ways to get to a destination, to get around a problem that you may not be aware of. But when you decide that I'm not going to let it stop me, and you start looking for those answers pop up all the time. And that's something that she had talked about in the interview.
What I would say to that is the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. Instead of thinking about, oh, I cannot solve this, I haven't figured out how to solve it yet. Because a lot of what we've had to do is find non-traditional methodologies, because the standard or the traditional methodologies didn't always work for us. And that's where you create like a whole new venture, right? A whole new bit. A lot of what we now consider to be standard came out of people looking at non-traditional options. Uber, Lyft, like what we call disruptors. The disruption is when someone said, "I have to look for a non-traditional option." And in some communities, right, where they don't have access to resources that everyone has access to, they get better at becoming creative, which is using your imagination to solve a problem, because they said necessity is the mother of invention. So out of necessity, we've had to look for what are some non-traditional ways. What are some things that no one would have, like, this probably, like, in the back of your mind, you're like, this probably won't work, but I'm gonna just test it anyway. I'm gonna just test it to see what happens. Like, and you test it, and it's like, oh, it did, like, yeah, because you're thinking like this one is like really, I'm really stretching. if I try this method? And it's like those are the ones that actually work in many cases. I mean, I won't go into the story now, but like, how I even started to shift the course of my business was by making a request or, making a deal with someone that was like on paper doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. But I made the offer and they were like, yeah, I'll do it. And I'm like, bet. But on it wasn't something that was traditionally people would have thought of making happen. I was like, let me just take a risk because like if I don't ask, I already got the answer. The answer is no. If I do ask, I end up and they say no, I'm just in the same spot I'm already in right now. But if they say yes, I've advanced the ball 5 yards, 10 yards. Um, and that goes back to I think when she said entrepreneurship is a battle. Some people jump into the game when they're not battle tested. Going the idea when she was talking about how she lost it and was able to build it back. So if you're battle tested, you could lose the battle and still win a war because people who are battle tested know how to fight. Like you have the skill sets, you have the mindset, and now it's just a matter of putting those into action to go out and get your assets. So people don't realize that entrepreneurship isn't always a pleasurable experience. It's not just fun and games. It look on paper, everybody's like, "Oh, you balling," It's like, but sometimes it's some tough. It's like I should not say sometimes, like a lot of times, there are tougher moments. But when I listened to her talk, for me, it reminded me of that concept of going back to basics. We so often get enamored in the toys, the fancy stuff, the shiny stuff. Like, what's this new gadget? What's this new thing? What's this new stuff? And people spend a lot of time following fads. Like, what's the fad of the moment, right? Now, I'm not saying artificial intelligence is a fad, but I know that artificial intelligence is going to shift to something else. Everything has a beginning and it has an end. It's like we thought this was it and it changed to something else, and they thought that was it and it changed to something else. Everything changes. Like, you know, I was listening to somebody talk this morning, and they were at a hearing, like doing, and they were talking about, oh, when they first got started, people were using Blackberries. Everybody was at the time, everybody was like, this is it, this is it. And then it was like iPhone came out, and then the Android phone. So the key is, are you following the fad or are you following the principle? And what she was talking about is getting back to the principles that work regardless of the technology of the moment. And consistency and commitment are principles that work regardless of
Yeah.
the industry, regardless of the technology. When she talked about retention, reactivation, and referrals, those are principles that work. And the principles will work for whoever works them.
Yeah, man. It's amazing because one of the things that she said that I thought was really, really impactful was, being successful in business is about having the right systems and consistency. And when you think about it, we have access and to all these shiny objects and tools and systems, and AI is the new hottest thing ever. But beyond that, for you to be have longevity in your business, you need to have systems, and those systems needs to do the repeatable things consistently in order for you to stay consistent, stay profitable, have that retention, which was one of the three R's she was talking about, right? And when you have those things, sometimes those things aren't necessarily as fun and exciting anymore. It's about doing the same things over and over and over again so that you consistently are profitable. And for a lot of times, man, if you just go out in not these internet streets, but the real streets, and you think about, and look at the businesses that have closed in your area in the last 2 to 3 years, I'm pretty sure you will see brick and mortar businesses that you used to frequent or know of that are just not there anymore. At least for me, I can at least almost 10 of them that just they didn't. I mean, it wasn't, I'm not talking about the pandemic shut them down. I'm talking about they either started up after or they made it through and then they are now gone. And I think that for those of us who are looking at an internet business or using the internet to drive business, those brick and mortar businesses are a indicator of how challenging it can be to be able to keep doors open. And if you are noticing, like I'm noticing, it is not easy to keep doors open. For so longevity has to be something that you should be considering. And any type of shiny object tool AI, it should be added to the foundation that you have that is the systems and consistency to keep that business going. And I think that not all people are always aware or thinking about it like that because it's not always the fun thing to do. And so that's the one of the things that really stood out to me was the systems and consistency that she brought up.
Yeah, man, because people confuse methodology and principle.
Yep.
They think the method is the principle, and then they start to invest so much into that method, thinking that that's the actual principle. So I'm not against anything that's hot right now. I just know that what's hot right now may not be hot tomorrow, right? I was on Audible the other day, and I was going through my library and looking at books that I got on Audible, and I would come across a book, and I was like, "Oh man, like yeah, I remember this author." And it was a person at the time that when you got the book, they were like everybody was talking about this person. And now I looked at the date when the book came out. I was like, "Oh my god, it did 2019." And I'm like, "Okay, that's only, a few years ago, but you don't hear this person being talked about that. They were the hot person at the time. Everybody was trying to book the person, everybody's getting the person on their shows, and things change. The marketplace will shift, which is why when it comes to the principle, you got to understand how to understand what part is methodology versus what part is the actual principle that's consistent, right? So when she was talking about more than one way to do it, I don't know 70 ways. I know one way, and I find, it's like, so it's like you have to have multiple strategies. Like AI could be one strategy, but you need to have other strategies too. Because what happens if like the power goes out? You know what I mean? Like there's other contingencies that you have to think about. So people sometimes lock into a specific way, like, oh, here's the way to do it now. Like, so everybody will start shifting to this way, and then if that way gets blocked, now they're stuck, right? If Facebook changes its principles, or if this person changes their terms and conditions, or if they say we're not going to have these type of videos anymore, right? So you got to understand what's the principles I need for retention? What's the principles that I need for referrals? What are the principles that I need for reactivation? And then how many methods can I get to do those principles? How many methods can I put in action at the same time to get referrals, to get retention, to get consistency, to get reactivation? And the more of those things you have working at once, your chances of success increase, your probability increases because you're not relying on one way to get to do it.
Right. Talking about things that compound when you do them. That they that was one of the things that we brought up is sometimes you need things that compound instead of just being a thing by itself. And a couple of things that she mentioned that um, a couple of things that she mentioned that help that is the two things that she said that you should have, and which I agree with, and that is a marketing calendar and a relentless follow up system, right? And so the marketing calendar is what you are, you think about it, it's how you're going to put your word out there, your message out there. your marketing calendar, if you're on social and you're posting, that's when you're putting your messages out. If you're running ads, it's, the ads you're running. If you're doing events, it's when the events are and what promotes to fill the seats, right? It's like you have to have a marketing calendar, and if you don't, then you should start looking at implementing one immediately, because a lot of times when you are stagnant, if it can go back to, well, let's look what's on your calendar. If nothing's on your calendar, then you're not doing enough activity to drive the business towards you. So I think that it's important to recognize those two things, right? And if you had a marketing calendar and you are doing activity and you are generating leads, then the next thing is the relentless follow-up system for those leads, uh, and follow-up systems for most of the things in your business, not just leads, but you should probably start there. So I think those two things are very, very important to have. If you're not already doing them, look at them. If you already are doing them, can you improve them? Can you make them better? So again, the foundational systems that drive consistency is a marketing calendar and relentless follow-up. Those are the two things.
Yeah, man. The last thing I'll add to this is the idea of inventory. Like for people who have businesses that have products, they got to know what do they have in stock. And what sometimes gets overlooked is a self inventory. We often take for granted value that we bring to the marketplace because it's common to us. So, how often are we taking a self inventory of our insight, of our information, of the things that make us unique? Because what's unique to us is oftentimes what we think is stale about us, like what we think is common about us. Because it's not really unique to you personally, because you're with it all the time. So it becomes, if you're looking at the same thing over and over and over again, it's like, oh, you get bored with it. But for other people, it's like the first time they're seeing it, first time they've been shown a process or a method or a solution or a talent or a skill. So when it comes to increasing our customers and our value, our clients and our value, is taking inventory of our own stock of what we have in our hand, what abilities we have, what our treasure, our talent, our time, and taking an account of the things that we can do that will make other people's lives easier, and your experiences that you were going through, or that you've gained, and the knowledge and insight those experiences have given you that other people could be missing out on. So just like we're going into, like, if it was like, if you think about an old school business, they would go to the stock room and they would see what's on the shelf. We have mentally, right, a stock room in our head of ideas, concepts, things that we've learned that other people haven't experienced. And we take for granted some of these things because it's become common knowledge to us. Like, we just assume, well, everybody knows this because I know it. Everybody can do this because I can do it, not realizing that you were gifted with something special that the world needs to experience. And you could be denying the world that value. You could be blocking someone from getting free of a problem in their life because you're taking something for granted that other people are willing to actually compensate you for.
Yeah, man, I 100% agree, and I think that it was just such a great interview, and I think that, you know, we can take the tips not only from that interview but from this one and really apply it and change our business, man. So I want to thank you for sharing, for your insights, um, and I appreciate it. And I'm guilty of that, and you've brought that to my attention before, of thinking that, I get used to the fact of the things that I know and not really assess my own inventory and how valuable it could be to some others who may not know it because I'm around it all the time. I think everybody knows all of this stuff, and it's like, nah, man, you they don't, and that comes from thinking about the time that you spend studying, working with, involved in, being active in, appreciating, even, reading and learning from things. Like, not everyone has your experience, and so your knowledge and value comes from that. And so sometimes it takes someone like a Jerry to say, hey, you got a lot of value, and not everyone has that value. And so I appreciate you, because that is something, as you spoke it, I remembered, yeah, that's something you you had to tell me several times, like, nah, man, not everybody knows that stuff, so you got to share. So thank you for that. With that, man, we're gonna bounce up out of here, and we will be back next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for another exciting episode of Technology Tuesday. Hey, if you want to hang out with Jerry and I, come join our community at sevenfigurepath.com. That's the number sevenfigurepath.com. We're in there every week sharing some stuff with our members, and we'd love to share it with you too. So if you would like to do that, head on over and join the group. Until next week, have a blessed weekend, and talk to you guys soon. Jerry, take care, bro.